Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, and with me, maybe, if it doesn't drop, we have Alasdair McKenzie. Hello, Alasdair. We have to talk about Lazio Napoli. And I know it sounds weird, but can we say the draw against Napoli, it's more a lost opportunity for Lazio? I feel more like we lost 2 points rather than we gained one. And against Napoli, still top of the table, it's quite a strong quote to say, right?
Yeah, I think most people will have left the stadium feeling that. It's even stranger if you think that there was a 89th minute equalizer, however late it was, which in normal circumstances would be enough for a draw to be celebrated. But our friend Karsten texted us during the game saying this is ridiculous. Napoli's XG is at 0.2, and this was after they'd scored 2 goals. But that says it all, really. It was a kind of a frustrating one because Lazio, you felt, had the better of the game, created the better chances. But as seems to happen all too often in these big games, the kind of moments went against them. And I think that's probably what we're going to end up discussing again.
Yeah, before we start going deep in this very important game, we have to thank all our Patreon. You can subscribe, be membership on Lazio Lounge, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. We are scheduling a Q&A exclusively for our members this month. So if you have question for us, you can subscribe and ask us question. And Alasdair, we have so many things to talk about because Carsten would be really happy when we're going to talk about Isaksen, because what a performance, what a goal. He's a Napoli killer. He scored in the away game. He scored at home. He's playing really, really well. Best game of the season?
Best game in a Lazio shirt, I think.
Probably.
It was, maybe that's what was needed, was a bit of transfer speculation in January to kind of really get him going. But no, yeah, he was the only thing that surprised me was that he was taken off in this game. But maybe he'd already given it everything by that point. But the goal was unbelievable. It was one of those real kind of out of your seat goals. The power he hit it with, the connection he made, because the thing is, Merrick gets a pretty full hand on the ball, but it's going so powerfully that it just kind of like pushes his hand out the way, like not interested.
A lot of Napoli fans wrote me saying, that was a mistake from our goalkeeper. Do you agree?
No, I can see why they would say that, because if your keeper gets a hand on the ball, you expect them to be able to make some sort of save. But I think he just hit it with such power that that Merritt wasn't able to. Well, he wasn't able to get his body in a position to stop it, I guess, from that distance. But so the goal in itself was brilliant. I don't think it was just the goal, though. It's a shame his big chance in the second half didn't fly in, because that would have been a huge moment for him. The one thing I've continuously said this season when we've talked about Isaksen has been around feeling that he can be a bit timid, especially in these big matches, and that he needs to come out of his shell a bit, and also that he was still lacking that one big game where he's the main man and he's like man of the match and he's suddenly the star of the show. And that's a kind of shame about last night, because he kind of was the star of the show, but it doesn't have as much weight if it ends in a draw and if he's missed a big chance. But regardless, I think it was a kind of performance that does underline the general improvement we've seen from him recently. And it's great to see. Certainly on that point about his confidence, I do think that has improved a lot in the last couple of months. And he seems like some sort of weight has been lifted and he believes in himself a lot more in his own talent.
Were you surprised to see him trying to score from that distance? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I never saw him taking the opportunity from so far. I was a little bit surprised, and maybe even Meret was. Yes, against Napoli in the away game, he scored, I think it's the edge of the box. I don't know if he's inside, but that was far from the box, and you had at the same time two players close to him. So I thought, that you were talking about being a little bit timid. things look changed, right? Things
Yeah.
look different.
Well, that's what I mean. And so, like, when I'm talking about those two things of coming out of his shell and needing that breakout game, I do think that he has come out of his shell a lot. And in answer to that question, I think that goal shows it more than anything. Because, like you say, he's not someone we've seen attempting 30,
No,
35
no.
meter efforts at goal. And you need to be a guy who's full of confidence to take that on, especially if you've got other options around you. If you've got a home crowd who are going to scream at you if it flies over the bar, you need to be able to deal with that. And previously, he did play it safe too often. He would often get the ball on the right wing.
Yeah.
He would look both directions. There'd be a risky take on or something, and he'd pass the ball back to whoever was playing right back or inside to midfield. And you never really saw him taking huge risks. Whereas now his first thought, not just with the goal and the attempt and the bravery to take on the effort, but the way he was wanting to run at defenders yesterday. I mean, he was just gliding past them. And I think he really just seems to have realized that he's good enough. Maybe he had doubts about that before. And he seems to know now that he has the technique and the talent, that he's good enough to perform at this level. And I still think we are waiting for it to get him to be the star man, to get him to have big breakout man of the match performances. I would like to see that. I would like to see that in a game against a lower table team. Even it doesn't have to be against Napoli every time, Gustav. But,
Well,
it's still definitely a lot better.
can I ask you something, Alasdair? They gave the prize man of the match to Dia. I thought Isaksen deserved it much more than him. I don't like this type of thing, like the last that scores get the man of the match. Doesn't make sense, right? The man of the match should be the man of the match, the player who performed better. And as you were talking, Isaksen had a great performance. He left because he had cramps and he couldn't run anymore. But he defended, he scored, he dribbled past pretty much all Napoli players, created a lot of chances, wasted a huge chance in the second half. But for me, by far, he was man of the match. By far, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think Zaccagni was also good on the other side too. But yeah, I mean, Dia's impact was really impressive and his goal was fantastic. So I guess in terms of what you can be asked to do in a game, he absolutely delivered to the top level on that. So from that perspective, you can see how people come to that conclusion. But I am with you on that. I think the overall impact on the game, Isaksen had a far greater one than Dia did. But it's good to, again, it kind of underlines Lazio's options once more. We had the Monza game a week ago. Pedro comes on and scores twice. Then this game a week later, Pedro gets to start, doesn't score, but Dia comes off the bench and Dia scores. So there is this sixth sense that Baroni seems to have with making attacking substitutions, where they are making an impact in games so regularly.
We talked about the player who had a big impact. We have to mention another player who had a big impact, but a negative impact, Ivan Provedel. Now, I don't know on which side you are on, but he made a double mistake on the first goal of Napoli. We mentioned Strakosha with his feet, and we said that Provedel is so good, but the pass is a bad mistake. And even the Raspadori shot wasn't that difficult, right?
No. Generally, when you've brought this topic up this season, I've been reluctant to be too critical of Provedel. But I do think he was at fault yesterday, yeah. And the kick you're talking about, it wasn't even the first one. He'd already made almost the same mistake a few minutes beforehand. And I think that is the kind of shot that you can look at a keeper and be like, come on, you can't let things just go through your legs. So, yeah, I think the critics of Provedel certainly have a bit more to go on this time than they have done previously. My bigger doubt is kind of whether that means Mandas comes in and he solves all those problems. I still just haven't seen enough from Mandas to believe that we have waiting in the wings someone who's so much better than Provedel in the way that people seem to be convinced he is. But there is an option, I guess. That's the difference to years gone by. There is another option. So
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. Do you think we'll see him in the Europa League still, Mandas, and he'll just stick to that, Coppa Italia maybe? Or, I mean, it's hard to see Baroni benching Provedel, I think.
Well, Baroni said it after the game. He said our starter is Provedel, so I don't think he's changing after that. But I have to say two things. The first one is, in the warm-up of the game, Provedel missed all the attempt he made. You know that now goalkeepers warm up and do like 10, 15 minutes kicking the ball. He pretty much missed all the other goalkeepers. So I turned to my son and said, hey, he missed every single pass so far. So that wasn't a good sign for the game. And the second thing is, I would rather see Mandas. I think he's ready. I think he deserved to have more space, especially seeing Provedel. We talk in this podcast in particular saying one of the reasons why Provedel is playing is because he has very good feet. He hardly misses any passes. But this season, he missed, not only in this game, in the last couple of games, he's been bad even with his feet. So, Fiorentina, first goal, he should have saved it. Milan, the second goal, he should have saved it. Again, Napoli, it's not the first game he make mistakes, and in these big games that can have a huge impact, right? And it did. I mean, all this game we mentioned, we lost it except Napoli where we were winning.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as damaging this time in the sense that we do pick up a point. The frustration is then Juventus go and beat Inter as well, which, like, come on, Simone, do us a favor here.
Incredible.
And now I don't know for sure, but you do wonder if there's a certain psychological weight of seeing Juventus above you in the table, even if it is level points, just knowing they're now in there and you're out, and feeling like your lead is gone. I think that's tough, and especially tough when it's Juventus you're talking about as the team that's pushed you out, and the kind of psychological weight they have in Italy, having been dominant for as long as they were. And yeah, that's where these big games, these errors in big games, these poor results in big games, poor decisions in big games, they're just going to come back to bite us, and it looks like they have again.
Can we say something? I mean, you signed Reda Belayan this winter. They signed, I don't remember who they got, the guy that scored 5 goals, right? I mean, you signed Belayan, they signed Colomoni. There's a little bit of a difference there, 5 goals so far in Serie A. I mean, our players didn't play a single minute. That's what you get when you do this winter transfer market like that. Juve has improved. Milan, Jimenez scored this weekend, has improved. Fiorentina have improved. The only team that didn't improve that much is Lazio, right? And it's going to be complicated. Even more if we don't win these big games. Because, and I want to ask you this. You mentioned Pedro. Of course, Pedro played really well against Monza. He came in instead of place of Dia injured, etc. Against Napoli, probably Delebashiro would have been a wiser decision. I mean, he tried, but Pedro didn't play a great game against Napoli. They are very good defending. You should have put maybe a Delebashiro type of player there, who is more physical, who's more a midfielder rather than a punta. I think Baroni keep making the same mistakes in big games, right? Being ultra offensive, while you can't do this against Monza, Verona, etc. But against Milan, Inter, you have to be more careful, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is easy to say in retrospect, but then again, we did talk about this last week, and because there was precedent, of having done that in previous games against Napoli and used Delabishiro in these matches to help kind of counteract, I guess, the power and the strength of that Napoli midfield. It was obviously slightly different on Saturday because the injury problems that Napoli had meant that Conte went and changed his formation. And that was no secret that was going to happen, that he was going to move to a 3-5-2, or he was likely to. So I don't know if Baroni would have been more likely to go for a 4-3-3 if he was up against another 4-3-3. Maybe he felt like he had more opportunity to put more attacking players on the pitch if that was the shape he was up against, because it can get difficult for one striker to fight three towering centre backs, for example. I don't know. But yeah, I think you're certainly right to bring it up, because there is a general kind of theme of Baroni's decision making in big games not having been quite right. Then again, I guess the substitutions he makes, like I already referred to, are often right. Is that because, I guess then the question is that because he's a mastermind at making changes, or is that because he's not getting it right from the start, so he needs to kind of bring in changes to get things how they should be?
I can I think you can see it both way, but I think giving a chance to Dele Bashiro on Saturday would have been a better option, probably, that rather than Saturday. I mean, Pedro is 37. I think he's good to come in the last 10-15 minutes. He's still fresh. He still can have an impact rather than starting from the beginning in these big games. I think he struggled a little bit. But I want to ask you this, because Nuno Tavares started on Saturday, and I thought he didn't have a very good game. I thought he didn't defend at all. And it's not a coincidence that the second game goal from Napoli, that is still embarrassing. I mean, I watched it a couple of times, still I cannot believe it, came from his side. I think Nuno Tavares, it's a left back. He has to defend. He's not a winger. And even if he's a winger, he still have to do both phases, right? And it looks to me like he's becoming more and more lazy when Lazio's defending. And as we are not Real Madrid, and even left wing of Real Madrid has to defend, he should be more active when we are defending.
Yeah. You need the positive impact of his attacking qualities to outweigh the kind of defensive mistakes or lack of concentration or whatever it is. Some of his crossing yesterday was not particularly accurate, if I'm being nice. And it's something that's really changed from the start of the season, is that Baroni started off the season being even more attacking and feeling like he could have Lazzari and Tavares in the same team and have two kind of very attack-minded fullbacks going forward on both sides. Whereas, as we saw against Napoli, when Lazzari came on, Tavares came off. So I think he now feels that he can only have one on at a time, probably. The problem is then, though, if you're having one, say, defensive-minded fullback on at a time, that's tending to be Maricic right now, and Maricic is tending to be pretty poor right now. So it's a bit of a problem here currently.
Alasdair, we have a question from one of our patrons about Marusic. Alec is asking, what's happened to Marusic? Because he said, now I struggle to remember a big game by Marusic without a screw up. Well, the second goal of Napoli is incredible. It's really, I watched it 3 times because I couldn't believe it. Gila is, I don't think Marusic did it on purpose, just to be honest, completely honest with you. I think that was an instinct. He tried to hit the ball, and even there, Provedel could have done better, to be honest with you. But what's your take on Marusic? Is something wrong with him?
I don't know. I mean, I think Marusic has always been reasonably limited as a player. I think he's always been a very useful player, and he works really hard, and he's had some big games, but he's never been kind of a superstar defender for Lazio. Um, this season, probably more individual errors creeping into his game. I think that's also partly because of the style of football that Baroni plays, and it leaves you exposed in more positions, I suppose. I think the fact that he used to maybe play with Felipe Anderson ahead of him instead of Isaksen makes a difference. I think Isaksen's developed and got better at helping the defense, but Anderson was incredible at that. Perhaps he used to have a bit more protection than he now has. Maybe he's just getting older. I don't know. It could be any number of things combined. Maybe it's just a dip in form, and he'll be back to previous levels soon. But yeah, again, I do think it's a slightly problematic thing if he feels like you need a defensive player to balance Tavares, but the defensive options are Marusic, who's in poor form, and Husai, who's barely played all year, then it's a bit tricky.
And he's injured. One thing very important we didn't touch is the injury of Tati Castellanos. It looks like it's a bad one. We still don't have the results, but it looks like he's going to be out for 1 month. And we said in this podcast that he's not Ciro Immobile, but he's an important part of this team, right? He's a fighter. He creates chances. And again, he went out on Saturday and Baroni picked Noslin, who can play number 9, but it's a different type of player, right? I thought maybe Dia would have been a better solution in that game, playing as number 9. So I don't know. Missing 1 month means that he's going to even miss the next stage of Europe League. So, and we are going to play Inter in Coppa Italia, Milan in Serie A. So we have a lot of big games coming on. It's going to be a huge problem, right?
Yeah, I think it's a huge loss. I think people look at the goals or look at the finishing issues he's had and can undervalue his importance to the team, because that is, he is still a top scorer in the team. So first of all, you are missing goals, even if we always feel like we should get more from Tati. We are still missing a certain level of goal output from him. But on top of that, he's so important to the way that whole attack works. How he can bring different players into the game, how they can feed off him, the work that he puts in, the way he annoys defenders. And I don't think there's anyone else in the squad who kind of does the same thing. So Baroni's probably going to have to adapt things slightly to deal with that absence. Noslin, he was supposed to be the guy, wasn't he, at the start of the season? So it's a chance for him to step up. Maybe it's a chance for us to see a bit more of Ibrahimovic, I think, more to say any Ibrahimovic, to help out the attack a bit. Dia can obviously play there, but he spent most of the season not playing there, and then you need someone else to fill in as the number 10. Pedro has been talked about as a number 9 now. That's something I feel like we spoke about a few years ago under Maurizio Sarri. So yeah, the good thing is there are options, but the bad thing is none of them are nearly as convincing as Tati.
Talking about Tati, last year he made an unbelievable goal against Napoli on offside. This Saturday, Zaccagni did pretty much the same, again on offside. Are we going to win the title for best goal on offside even this season? Because last year we win it easily, right?
That was such a shame. I mean, what a goal. I mean, he catches it perfectly as well. So often you see these overheads, and then when you see the slow motion replay, you realize they've made a pretty bad connection. But he catches that perfectly, right on the laces, right in the bottom corner. but he was offside. I think it was hard to tell at the time. They weren't really giving us pictures either
Yeah.
to show definitively, but I think he was just about. Yeah, it's a good point actually, because Tati's goal was outrageous against Napoli last year.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It was
Some sort of
terrific.
curse going on there.
Yeah. Um, Rovella had another terrific game. I think he's overperforming. He's really one of the most interesting midfielder we have. But he got the 10th yellow card so far this season. It's unbelievable. 10th yellow card. So
Really?
he's gonna miss Venezia Lazio. We talk about the transfer market. Do you think it's finally the time for Belayan to play? Or will Dele Bashiro slide? Or will Baroni rush Vecino to play so that Belayan doesn't play on Saturday?
Belayan has to play, surely. I mean, what is the point of signing him if he doesn't play in a game like that? Because he's Rovella is exactly the kind of player in this team that he's brought in to provide support for. B, you're playing Venezia, you're not playing Inter, so you can throw him in, and it's not going to be too overwhelming. And C, he's the only signing we made who's Serie A ready. He's just played half a season with Verona, so it's not like any of this is terrifying for him anyway. So, I mean,
And,
surely he plays.
and I agree with you, but why didn't he brought him in when we were 3-0 against Monza and Rovella was one yellow card from be suspended and miss Lazio Napoli? I mean, if he didn't come
I
in
don't know.
that occasion, it's incredible, right? So I don't know. I mean, Del Bashiro played well in that position, not against Fiorentina, but in other games. So
Mario Hila,
Mario Hila could be another option. So especially now that we have Proscard back in the team, he can be an option there. So
get
yeah,
Gigot in there, a bone crunching holding midfielder,
I
destroyer.
think of the big teams. Every team played the winter signing except Lazio, and they all had huge impact, right? Colomani 5 goals. I don't remember the others, but yeah, even Elmas that was linked with Lazio scored on Saturday. I mean, come on, our didn't play it.
The funny thing is, yes, it's like a new way of torturing us, where previously that was all about why do they never sign anyone? Why is January always so useless? And then this year they go, oh well, we're gonna bring you 3 new signings, and they all look quite exciting. And then they just don't play them. Just don't don't use them.
Now, exciting, I think is too much. Belayan should be playing, but I mean, Ibrahimovic. Saturday, Chauna comes in, and I thought he was dreadful. And I was thinking, if Baroni prefers Chauna to Ibrahimovic, this tells you a lot about the player, right?
Have you given up on Chauna on the basis of that comment, or how do you feel about him? Because it only dawned on me on Saturday night actually when he came on, and my head sunk a bit because I realized I've kind of lost faith in him making an impact in these kind of games now. I don't know. I mean, it's too soon. I think I am jumping the gun, and he is very young, and he's got raw talent there, but I've just not seen improvement over the season.
I would say
Certainly not as
I
much
would say
as
his
you'd
form
hope.
is dipping, to be honest with you, and his conviction as well. I mean, he comes in on Saturday and he does pretty much nothing. Not only he doesn't defend. I mean, Napoli had a chance there, and Chana was walking by instead of running down and try to give a hand to Lazzari. So that's where I get concerned because the talent is there, but it's the head that is not there. And in modern football, you have to be focused, especially because you just come in. It's not that you played 85 minutes and you're tired and your legs are not moving anymore. You just came in. You're young. You should be focused and trying to give everything to have an impact in the last 5 minutes of the game. He said he was invisible. So that's my biggest concern. That's my problem with Shauna. But I think the talent is there. So I hope Baroni is able to do something. But again, if Ibrahimovic doesn't play in front of this Chaunat, then this tells you a lot even about Ibrahimovic, right?
Well, exactly, and that's why I brought it up, because I do think you would assume, especially now that Tati's injured, that we will see Ibrahimovic sooner or later,
Has to,
because
yeah.
Chauna's form, I think, hasn't been great, like you say, and yeah, with all the games coming up and the likelihood of winger options having to move into the centre, then surely there's room for him somewhere, whether it's as a number 10 or as a winger.
Do you think?
I mean, when I said exciting, I think exciting within the context of Lazio January signings. Come on, 3 guys.
Yeah, but one played how much last year with Frosinone? 500 minutes, something like that, and they got relegated. Proskard, our friend Carson talked already about him, so that tells you a lot. The only good signing is Belayan, who, by the way, still didn't play a minute, which is concerning, and he's not in the Europe League squad. Let's not forget about. So he's only going to play in Serie A and Coppa Italia. But Coppa Italia, we're playing against Inter away. I don't think he's doing this massive turnover and play the subs, right, against Inter.
No, I think that's quite an interesting game though, because obviously it's not a priority for either club.
You think so? I think for Inter maybe not. For us, could be.
I don't think so. No, now that the Europa League is there, and with those, well, we'll find out later this week who we're going to face, but just people are talking about it differently. The whole attitude seems to have changed around it, and it's interesting how much of an impact that can make, because it's not like this is the first time Lazio have been in the early knockout stages of the Europa League. But it is the first time I can remember where people are talking optimistically about Lazio going really far in the competition or even winning the competition. And I think even if that doesn't happen, it does show that there is like more of a willingness to kind of give it a go and take it seriously and back yourselves. And who knows? I mean, it might still be your best route to the Champions League. Depends how the Serie A consistency goes. But I feel like if Lazio are unable to get results in these big games in Serie A, then that's only going one way. It's sad, but it's true. I mean, I don't think you can keep up in Serie A if you're not going to win against 7 of the top teams.
Yeah, you need a hand from the other teams otherwise, right? I mean, Fiorentina losing against Como definitely is a good sign, but we lost both games against Fiorentina. Juventus is not playing an incredible football, but they beat Inter. So, to be honest, it's tough to believe Lazio can make it to the Champions League, right? To finish top 4. And we have to point out that it's pretty much impossible that Italy finish with 5 teams in the Champions League, as Atalanta losing and Roma drawing means that we lost the second position. So, and we have already one team out, that is Bologna. There's a chance we're gonna lose another one in the Champions League. So it's gonna be pretty hard going forward. So pretty much we know that only the top 4 will qualify for the Champions League, right? Next season. If Lazio or Roma don't win the Europe League, which don't know if it's gonna happen. So it's pretty much hard going forward, thinking about Lazio finishing in top 4. I mean, if Juventus and Inter go forward in the Champions League, then they can lose points, even Milan. But, I think they're still a better team than us.
It probably does rely on the others like taking their eye off the ball a bit. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Inter could lose the Coppa Italia. They don't care and focus only on the Champions League and the Campionato. So that's another thing we have to point out. But we need a change of performance against the big team from here going forward. And we're playing away against Milan. Let's not forget that in the last 33 years, we won twice at San Siro against Milan in Serie A. Twice in 32 years. So that's terrible. We are playing away against Inter. Again, we didn't win that much away against Inter. We are playing home against Juventus. And then there's the derby and Atalanta away. So we just have one game at home. So it's not going to be easy, right?
Yeah, when you put it like that, well, yeah, difficult. And I guess Roma is a home game this time.
Yes.
But, obviously a home game, unlike other home games. Yeah, I think it's something that has to change. Really, really has to change very quickly. But but even though I think always come back to the same point, Champions League qualification would be a bonus, really, because we didn't expect to be anywhere near this at the start of the season. So you need to keep a level of perspective too. That this is. I hope that the players are still focused on it, but as fans, I think you are able to kind of look at it and say, well, give it everything you've got, but we weren't expecting that, so it's a bonus, really.
Yep. Alasdair, before we finish, I want to talk about this. I know you want to be part of it. So basically, what happened is last Sunday, Roma played away against Parma, and that sticker that you can see appeared in the Roma stand. So it said, worst enemy are Lazio, as you can see the banners, and Jewish. Now, we discuss about the fight against racism, fascism, etc., and we condemn Lazio fan often. But as we mentioned here very often, when a Roma fan doing this, nobody talks about it. Nobody. So this happened yesterday. Roma played at 6 o'clock at Parma. Corriere dello Sport, Gazzetta dello Sport, Corriere, nobody mentioned it. Now Repubblica, a couple of hours ago, just wrote this little article. And by the way, I don't know if you can read it. Half of the article, it's very small, talk about Lazio fans doing stupid things. So this is really embarrassing. And when we say that, unfortunately, journalism in Italy, it's not in great shape, is this. When things happen, when Lazio fan does these things, it's everywhere. When Roma fans do this terrible behavior, it's invisible. Nobody talks about it. We condemn fashion and racism wherever. If Lazio fan does it, we are the first one blaming them and condemning them. We would love to see the same thing even when Roma fans does it, which doesn't happen. And this, Alasdair, project a terrible image about Lazio and Lazio fan, which we hated because we see, especially we that live abroad or have been living abroad, we usually being, taught like, you're fascist because you're a Lazio fan. Guys, no. Roma fans are exactly the same of us, do these terrible things, but simply nobody talks about it because it's not nice, because I'm a Roma fan, so Roma is only positive things, so I don't have to talk about these banners, these things. I hate it. I really hate it. And I would love to show everybody that it's not only Lazio fan doing this. I would say that it's more Roma fans than Lazio fan.
Yeah, I think you've got a absolutely valid point there. There's a real problem with a lack of balance, because I think, like you say, we are regularly having to come in and condemn the behavior of certain groups of fans who come and do awful things that stain the reputation of the club all the time. But what you're talking about here is this this inability for there to be a one rule for everyone when it comes to this. And I don't think the society as a whole is taking it seriously as a problem if it's being used as a way of kind of point scoring, if it's being used as for other motives to condemn this kind of behavior. There shouldn't need to be any other motives. You should just have to condemn this kind of behavior no matter what. In any walk of life, whether it's football or not football, it's unacceptable to to do these kind of things. And so that's certainly where the frustration comes from. And there are all sorts of examples of this kind of thing. And like you say, with the Italian media, and perhaps people might think, well, okay, but what influence does that have on us? Well, it does, because what the international media are picking up about Italian football is based on what's being published in the Italian media. That's where they're getting most of their source material. So what is being written is entirely dependent on what's being written in Italy. And if the coverage isn't balanced there, then the coverage isn't going to be balanced globally. And I think one of the links in that story you showed there was about those Anne Frank stickers, which is quite a few years ago now. I can't remember the year it was, but that became an international news story. And it's ultimately the same thing,
Absolutely.
isn't it? It's printing out these awful anti-Semitic stickers and sticking them around a stadium, you know, kind of at the expense of your rivals, so to speak. And I don't really see the difference between that and what's happening here, particularly. So, yeah, it's a frustrating one, Vittorio.
Yeah. I think we can wrap it up here. Thanks, Alasdair, for joining me. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Remember, if you love our podcast and want to support us, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. And we'll be back after Venezia Lazio, and we are preparing a special Q&A for our patrons. So keep on touch. Follow us on our Patreon page for more updates. Take care, guys.